We have a breaking news development this morning. Republican governors across the country are now mobilizing and calling up the National Guard, along with other military assets, ahead of tomorrow's No King's Day protests. So this morning, we have confirmation from at least two states, Governor Greg Abbott in Texas and Governor Glenn Youngkin in Virginia, both of whom have directed the National Guard to be deployed in cities across their state. Let's start with Texas. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has deployed the National Guard to Austin, Texas, the state capital, ahead of tomorrow's No King's Day protest. Austin is expected to have the largest protest in the state of Texas. Governor Abbott says that he needs to deploy the National Guard alongside other aerial assets and tactical assets to essentially keep the peace in Austin, despite the fact that there have been no suggestions that there would be any violence or anything to the contrary of peace. Austin is expected to draw tens of thousands of people tomorrow during the No King's Day protest, and while military members will likely now be on the ground near the protest. Now, importantly, in both Austin and in Virginia, which we'll talk about in a second, these National Guard members cannot act as law enforcement. They cannot conduct searches and seizures. They cannot conduct arrests. They will be there, according to the governors, to just keep the peace. Now, Governor Abbott claims that these protests are Antifa-backed. There's no evidence to that. He claims that they're somehow paid protesters, paid agitators. There's no evidence of that. In Virginia, Governor Glenn Youngkin has deployed the National Guard as well. There are about 60 protests that are expected across the Commonwealth of Virginia. And according to reports this morning, the National Guard will have some presence at most, if not all, of those protests, likely alongside other military assets. Virginia and Texas are first in doing these deployments, but expect Republican governors across the country to do similar deployments in their states, as Republicans on Capitol Hill and across the country are trying to drum up this narrative that No King's Day 2.0 is backed by Antifa, is backed by paid agitators, and are hate America rallies, which are not true. If you look back to No King's Day 1.0 on June 14th, it was a primarily peaceful protest. There were very little, if any, cases of violence during those protests. They were overwhelmingly peaceful. And so a lot of folks need to remember that No King's Day 2.0 needs to be a replica of No King's Day 1.0. The freedom of speech, the freedom to protest, is a fundamental tenet of your First Amendment rights. And so when you go out there, make sure you're going to be peaceful. I will be on the ground in the Washington, D.C. protest, covering it live for you all as a member of the press, because I think it's important. We expect over 100,000 people to come out tomorrow in Washington, D.C. on the National Mall as part of No King's Day 2.0. I will have all the updates for you. A lot of folks told me, Aaron, you should stay home because they may target you at these protests. But here's the thing. The truth needs to get out. And being on the ground as an independent journalist, that's my job. And so please consider subscribing to support my work today. Now, meanwhile, so you have National Guard in Texas, National Guard in Virginia. Expect National Guard to be called up in states like Mississippi, Louisiana, even a state like Ohio, anywhere you may have a Republican governor who wants to appease this administration, because the White House continues to call it these hate America rallies. The organizers behind No King's Day, I've spoken to them. They plan on actually having a record-breaking protest of over 10 million people potentially, which would rival some of the largest protests in American history, potentially making No King's Day 2.0 the largest protest in American history. So we're going to have to see what happens tomorrow, but I'll be in Washington, D.C., and let me know in the comments below whether or not you'll be out on the ground, whether you'll be protesting. Do not let these National Guard members or the deployment essentially stray you off your plans tomorrow. Please, if you're going to plan on coming out, do it and do it peacefully. Meanwhile, the government shutdown has entered its third week. We're now about 17 days or so into a government shutdown, but life is going on as usual for many of the so-called elites in Washington, D.C., whether it's the president or House members or Senate members, both on the left and the right. They continue to have their glitzy parties in Washington, D.C. They attend their galas. All signs are essentially life is as usual for many of these members, because remember, Congress doesn't work much anyway. Meanwhile, air traffic controllers have missed a paycheck. Most federal workers have missed paychecks. And while this government shutdown may now last into November, which means that your SNAP benefits will likely be impacted already, the U.S. Virgin Islands says that no one will get SNAP benefits in November if this government shutdown continues. I expect that to actually be expanded to other states, and I'll provide you updates. Remember the swastika flag, meanwhile, in one of the congressman's office, Dave Taylor, the Republican congressman? There was an American flag with the swastika in the center. Well, now there's a Capitol Hill police investigation into why the hell is there a swastika flag in a Republican member's office. Fox News is saying that it's an optical illusion. Okay. I mean, it's pretty clear to me. And Governor or Representative Dave Taylor says that it's part of a hoax targeting multiple Republican offices with altered flags. Taylor condemned the symbol and claimed that neither he nor his staff knowingly displayed it, but it's pretty clear as day. The Trump administration is moving to reopen Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge for full-scale oil and gas drilling, reinstating previously canceled leases, and allowing development across its entire 1.56 million acre coastal plain, a reversal of Biden-era limits that environmental groups call a threat to polar bears, the caribou, and indigenous lands, while Alaska officials hail it as an economic boon. Donald Trump's targeting of billionaire philanthropist George Soros and his Open Society foundations has sparked alarm among progressive nonprofits, which accuse the administration of using government power to intimidate civil society. Groups working on democracy, climate, Palestinian rights, and more. They are vowing to, quote, lock arms and resist what they call authoritarian repression. Former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton has officially self-surrendered to federal authorities in Maryland after being indicted on 18 counts of mishandling and transmitting classified national defense information. He calls it retribution from the Trump administration. Democrats are weighing mid-decade redistrictings in Maryland and Illinois to counter Republican-led map redraws in states like Texas and Missouri. We'll see what happens, whether or not Democrats move forward with Maryland and Illinois. The Trump administration is weighing a sweeping overhaul of the United States refugee system that will drastically cut admissions and prioritize white, English-speaking applicants, particularly Europeans and white South Africans, marking a sharp shift from aiding the world's most vulnerable toward favoring those aligned with the president's anti-immigration ideologies. And finally, 23 Democratic-led states, including California and Arizona, have sued the Trump administration for canceling the $7 billion EPA Solar for All program, which funded solar energy for low-income communities. State attorneys general argue the rollback will raise energy costs for many Americans. Folks, that's all the news right now. As always, if you want to support my work, make sure to subscribe today, like, comment, share this video so more people will see. And I'll be back this evening with another update. And remember, if you're going out tomorrow in Washington, D.C., come say hi. Would love to meet you. And I'll see you soon.